Ever heard that phrase, Renaissance man? Brings to mind like Da Vinci, Michelangelo, those guys. But what if I told you there was a whole other side to these Renaissance rock stars? Something you don't really see in those textbooks.
Right. It's true, though. For those Renaissance thinkers, magic, it wasn't some kind of mysterious sideshow. It was actually woven into how they understood, like, the entire universe.
You're saying it wasn't just some weird hobby, right? This was like mainstream Renaissance thinking.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking big names like
What?
Marsilio Ficino, Pico della Mirandola. These were intellectual giants, right? And they were deep into what we might call some unconventional philosophies.
Let me guess, those philosophies involved a little magic.
More than a little, actually. Try picture this. You're trying to understand the world, right? And the manual you've got, it mixes astrology, Kabbalah, that's Jewish mysticism, by the way, and then Christian theology.
Okay, now that's what I call a cosmic cheat sheet. But hold on a sec, you mentioned Kabbalah. For those of us who didn't ace Renaissance history, could you break that down a bit?
Sure. Basically, Kabbalah is all about finding those hidden meanings, the mystical connections within Jewish scriptures. It's a way to understand the divine, the universe, through symbols and secret interpretations.
Okay, so how does Christianity fit into all of this?
And that's where it gets really interesting. See, those Renaissance thinkers, they took those Kabbalistic ideas and mixed them with their own Christian beliefs, created what we call Christian Kabbalah.
Christian Kabbalah. So not just about religion then, right? Something bigger is going on.
You got it. Christian Kabbalah was about way more than faith. It was a philosophy, a whole worldview that saw the universe as this web of magical connections. They thought if you understood these connections, you could actually maybe influence the world around you. Imagine that.
All right, now you're speaking my language. So it's not just about believing in something, but using that belief to actually, shape reality. That's a powerful thought.
It really is. Christian Kabbalah was all about actually engaging with the universe, not just sitting back and accepting things. It kind of blurred the lines, between philosophy and, magic, I guess, suggesting knowledge could be a tool to unlock, hidden potential.
So in a way, these Renaissance guys were early hackers trying to find the cheat codes to the universe. That's kind of a modern concept, isn't it?
It is, and that's just the beginning. This wonder-working philosophy, they called it. It was everywhere in the Renaissance. Art, literature, even science and religion.
Okay, so we've got this wonder-working philosophy, right? Taking over the Renaissance, all this spirituality and science and a little magic thrown in.
Yeah.
But who were these guys? The ones trying to unlock the secrets of the universe. You mentioned Ficino and Pico. How do we even start with them?
Well, they were both really important in bringing back those old Greek and Roman texts, especially the ones about Plato and his crew.
Plato, like the philosopher.
Yeah, exactly. Ficino, for instance, he translated Plato's works, right?
Yeah.
But he saw them through this lens of Christian Kabbalah. So it's like this blend of really old wisdom and then, Christian faith.
So Ficino was like a remix artist, taking ancient Greek philosophy and adding that Renaissance flavor. I like it. What about Pico then? What was his thing?
Pico, he was all about human potential, like how much humans could achieve. He actually wrote these 900 theses, can you believe that? Arguing that humans, we can climb through these levels of existence, starting with the material world, right? All the way to, the divine.
Okay, so we're talking cosmic ladder climbing here.
Exactly. Each rung is like a higher level of understanding. That was Pico's vision for everyone.
I like it. So Ficino's laying down the philosophy, Pico's got us reaching for the heavens. Who else is in this Renaissance magic band?
And see, there's Johannes Reuchlin. He was this German scholar obsessed with the power of language. Yeah. Specifically Hebrew. He believed that if you could unlock the secrets of Hebrew, like the letters, the words, you could influence, maybe even control the world around you.
So Reuchlin was all about the magic of words. That's kind of cool. And then there wasn't it Agrippa? He's the one with that massive book on magic, right?
Exactly. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. Now, there's a Renaissance rock star, physician, lawyer, soldier, scholar, you name it.
This guy did it all.
He did. But he's definitely best known for his book, De Occulta Philosophia. A 3-volume epic, by the way.
3 volumes. This was no pamphlet.
Oh, absolutely not. This is like the ultimate guide to Renaissance magic.
Okay, so Agrippa's like the OG magic influencer. His book was the guide. But it wasn't all good vibes and spells, was that? Didn't people start getting a little freaked out by magic, seeing it as, demonic?
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. See, as we get into the late 16th century, things in Europe, they start to shift. The Protestant Reformation kind of throws a wrench in everything, challenges the Catholic Church.
And the church They weren't too happy about that, were they?
Not really. So you've got the Counter-Reformation trying to, reassert control, and suddenly these scholars digging into old texts, reinterpreting scripture, talking about magic.
Not exactly what the church wanted to hear.
Not at all. And that's when things get a little shaky, especially for someone like Francesco Giorgi.
Wait, Georgie, that was the guy involved with Henry VIII's divorce, right? From our history lessons.
The one and only. Giorgi was this Franciscan friar, super into Christian Kabbalah. But even he wasn't safe when things started changing. His work, people loved it at first, but then bam, the Catholic Church decides it needs some correction.
Correction. That sounds a little intense.
Yeah, correction meant censorship. Like, guys literally went through his books and crossed out anything they thought was bad.
Wow. So Georgie's work gets censored. What about everyone else we've talked about? Ficino, Pico, Reuchlin, Agrippa. What happened to them during all this religious drama?
Well, it's different for everyone. Ficino actually died before the Counter-Reformation really got going, so he kind of missed the worst of it. But Agrippa, even though he was a devout Catholic,
Yeah.
he got hit with accusations of heresy, even sorcery.
Seriously, even though he was trying to fit magic into, Christian teachings?
It's true. And you have to remember, this was when the whole witch hunt thing was going crazy. People were genuinely terrified of magic. They saw it as, the devil's work.
So, did Agrippa meet the same fate as those accused of witchcraft?
Well, he didn't get burned at the stake or anything, but his reputation, it was shot. Books banned, ideas condemned. It shows you how quickly things could change. One minute you're celebrated, the next you're public enemy #1, just because of a few ideas.
Definitely makes you think. But this was all happening in mainland Europe, right? What about England? They were having their own religious roller coaster ride during the Renaissance, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where our story takes a turn. We meet a guy who kind of embodies both the good and the bad of Renaissance magic. John Dee.
John Dee. Now, that's a name that just screams mystery. Who was he?
Imagine this. A mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, geographer, and advisor to Queen Elizabeth II herself. That was John Dee.
Wait, hold on. He was advising the Queen on all that.
He was a true Renaissance man, involved in it all, and he was really, really into the occult.
The occult, like seances and stuff.
Well, not exactly seances, but Dee was really into the idea of talking to angels.
Talking to angels. Okay, now that's a new one. He actually thought he could talk to angels.
He did. He'd do these rituals with crystals and other objects trying to contact angelic beings. He actually thought these angels, they held the key to, ultimate knowledge, the secrets of the universe and all that.
Wow, talk about having connections. Not just the Queen, but maybe even a direct line to heaven. But seriously, did people buy it? Did the Queen, her court, did they think he was legit or just a total weirdo?
That's the thing. It's complicated. On one hand, he was respected. The Queen asked his advice on all sorts of things, navigation, astrology, even political stuff. But on the other, all that occult stuff.
Yeah.
The angel conversations.
Yeah.
People definitely raised eyebrows. There were rumors. You know how it goes.
So even with the Queen as his fan, Dee was still walking on thin ice? But was any of his work, was it influenced by this Christian Kabbalah we keep talking about?
Oh, totally. Dee studied Ficino, Agrippa, all those guys. He saw himself as part of that tradition, trying to blend ancient wisdom with Christian beliefs, but also, pushing the limits a little.
Sounds like he was playing with fire a bit.
Yeah.
But how did all of this wonder-working philosophy, how did it actually show up in Elizabethan art, like paintings, plays, all that?
And that's where it gets really interesting, because it wasn't just hidden away in books or secret rituals. This stuff was everywhere. We're talking Shakespeare, Edmund Spenser, the works.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Give me an example. How do we see wonder working in Shakespeare, then?
The Tempest is a great example. You've got Prospero, right? Exiled duke hanging out on a magical island. He's got power through his books, his control over spirits.
Sounds kind of like Doctor Strange, but Renaissance style.
Exactly. It's this whole exploration of power, illusion, revenge, forgiveness, all wrapped up in magic and supernatural stuff.
So Shakespeare took these Renaissance ideas about magic and made them into these stories that were both entertaining and made you think.
Exactly. And it's not just the Tempest. The witches in Macbeth, the fairies in A Midsummer Night's Dream, even the ghost in Hamlet. Shakespeare wasn't afraid to go there.
Yeah.
To explore those dark, mysterious parts of being human, and often through magic.
Makes you wonder, did Shakespeare buy into any of this? Did he actually believe in magic? Or was he just using it to tell a good story?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We can't really get inside his head, unfortunately. But we do know he knew about these ideas, and he definitely wasn't afraid to use them.
And that's what makes Shakespeare so awesome, always leaves us wanting more. But we can't forget the other big names. What about Edmund Spenser? Where does he fit into all of this?
Spenser. His epic poem, The Faerie Queen, it's like a goldmine of symbolism. And it draws heavily on Christian Kabbalah, among other things. Think of it like an epic adventure, knights and ladies and dragons and magic, but then there's this whole deeper meaning hidden underneath.
Okay, so Lord of the Rings meets Renaissance philosophy.
You got it. Spenser uses all this fantasy to explore good and evil, faith, what makes a good person, all seen through this lens of, Christian Kabbalah and his own beliefs.
It's amazing how all these seemingly different things like Renaissance magic, Christian Kabbalah, Elizabethan literature are actually all connected.
It really is. It just goes to show you how powerful ideas can be, how they can stick around for centuries, be reinterpreted, reimagined.
And speaking of reinterpreting, let's talk about how this wonder-working stuff showed up in visual art. Any cool examples?
Oh, tons. But you can't talk about Renaissance art and magic without mentioning Albrecht Dürer. He was a German artist, and his work, it was totally influenced by all the intellectual buzz of the time, including Christian Kabbalah.
Dürer, he's the one who did that crazy detailed engraving Melancholy Earth, right, with the angel and all those strange tools.
That's the one. And it's a perfect example of how these philosophical, even magical ideas, they could be expressed visually through art.
Okay, I'm all in. Break it down for me. How does Melancholia I connect to Christian Kabbalah?
All right, so first you have to understand, back then, melancholy wasn't just like feeling sad.
It wasn't.
No, it was way more complex, often connected to like genius and creativity. Remember Agrippa and his 3 stages of inspired melancholy?
Right. Scientific, prophetic, and religious. So where does Melancholia I fit into that?
Well, that's part of the mystery. See, the figure of melancholy in the engraving, she's got all these tools around her, right? Compass, polyhedron, magic square. But she seems frustrated, like she can't quite figure out the secrets they hold.
So she's stuck.
In a way, yeah. Some people think she represents how limited human reason is. Like we can try to understand the universe, but only up to a point.
So she's hit a wall.
Kind of. And that actually ties into a big question within Christian Kabbalah. How much can we really understand through logic and observation alone? To really get it, to find true knowledge, maybe you need something.
Wow, that's kind of deep, especially considering all the religious upheaval going on then. Like Durer's saying, hey, we can try to figure it all out, but maybe we need a little help from above.
Exactly. And that's why Melancholia verse is still so powerful today. It shows us this clash between reason and faith, between ambition and mystery.
It's amazing how one work of art can do all that, but I gotta ask, Melancholia isn't the only depiction of melancholy we've got, right? What about Lucas Cranach the Elder? He did that painting called Melancholy, right? How's that one fit in?
Cranach. His melancholy is so interesting when you compare it to Durer's. Durer's is all contemplative, spiritual, But Cranach, he goes in a different direction.
How so?
Well, he taps into those anxieties of the time. Melancholy for him is this spiritual sickness, a kind of unease.
So both artists are looking at the same concept, but they see totally different things. That's fascinating.
Totally. And just shows you how much variety there was in Renaissance thinking, even about one concept. There wasn't just one right answer.
It sounds like the Renaissance was just this time of like crazy intellectual energy, but also a lot of uncertainty. Magic, science, religion, all jumbled together.
Exactly. And we're going to see how those ideas, they didn't just disappear, they evolved and influenced thinkers for centuries.
Can't wait to dive into that. So last time, we were looking at melancholy and art, right? How Dürer and Cranach had such different takes on it. One's all about the spiritual side, the other's tapping into the anxieties of the time. Really shows you how these ideas were seen from all these different angles back then.
It does. The Renaissance was just this explosion of ideas like a melting pot, You've got ancient wisdom bumping up against all these new discoveries. No wonder something like Christian Kabbalah, with all the magic and religion and philosophy, really caught people's imaginations.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to hack the universe or something, using every tool they could find, ancient texts, looking at the stars, even maybe, a little magic.
That's what makes it so fascinating, right? You've got this incredible freedom to explore new ideas, but also all this pressure from the church. We're not exactly thrilled about anything that might challenge their authority.
Yeah, and things got a little messy for some of those thinkers, especially once the Counter-Reformation kicked in. Censorship, accusations of heresy, those witch hunts. It kind of reminds you that thinking outside the box back then, it could backfire. Big time.
It's true. And it wasn't just happening over in mainland Europe. England had its own anxieties about magic and the occult, even with their version of Protestantism. Remember John Dee, advisor to Queen Elizabeth herself.
Oh yeah, the angel guy. Wasn't he walking a fine line between being this respected scholar and, well, doing things that might freak people out a little?
That's the one. Dee was brilliant, no question. But all that stuff with the angels, trying to use crystals and things to talk to, well, spiritual beings, it wasn't exactly dinner table conversation, even for people who liked him.
So even with the Queen on his side, it was still risky business.
You could say that. There are stories about officials visiting Dee, searching his stuff, grilling him about what he was up to. Even being well-connected wasn't a guarantee back then.
It's kind of sad when you think about it. Who knows? Maybe Dee was onto something. Or maybe he was just a product of his time, caught up in the mystery of it all. But speaking of mystery, we can't forget how all of this, the magic, the mysticism, it ended up in art.
Absolutely. And not just like a little sprinkle of magic here and there. This stuff was baked into the core of Elizabethan literature, art, the whole deal.
We talked about Shakespeare, how he used magic and the supernatural in his plays. But there's more, right? Like Christopher Marlowe, his play, Dr. Faustus, that's like the ultimate warning about messing with forbidden knowledge, right?
Oh, for sure. It's a classic story, really. Scholar makes a deal with the devil, gets knowledge and power, but then eternal damnation.
Yeah.
You don't get much worse than that.
Talk about high stakes. It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for, but instead of a genie, it's the devil himself. Renaissance style.
And that's why it's so relevant. Marlowe's play, it shows just how scared people were back then. They thought if you dug too deep, learned too much, magic, science, whatever, it could corrupt you, ruin you even.
So it's not just about the knowledge itself, but like the moral stuff that comes with it, the choices you make.
Right. And that's something we're still thinking about today, all these centuries later. How far is too far? When we push the boundaries of knowledge, are we thinking about the consequences?
Man, you're making me think. It's like this whole Renaissance magic thing. It's like opening a Pandora's box of ethical questions, and we're still trying to figure out the answers.
Exactly. And that's why history is so cool. It's not just dates and names. It's seeing how people in the past wrestled with the same stuff we're dealing with now.
It's like looking in a mirror, isn't it? We see how amazing we can be, but also how easy it is to mess things up.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But before we wrap things up, there's one more wonder-working idea I think we should touch on. Music.
Music. Interesting. I mean, I've always felt like music has this almost magical quality to it, the way it makes you feel things. But are you saying people back then, they actually thought music was magic?
They did. Remember how Christian Kabbalah was all about like everything being connected? Well, they saw music as this really powerful expression of that.
Yeah.
A way to tap into the fabric of, well, everything.
So it's not just about enjoying the melody. It's deeper than that.
Exactly. Think about how important music was in religious stuff, in healing, even just in the royal courts. It wasn't just background noise. It was a tool. Something that could shape how you felt, what you thought, even how you connected with, the big guy upstairs.
Wow. Makes you wonder what those Renaissance folks would think about today's music. Would they be into it? Or would they just think it was this noise?
That's a good question. I have a feeling they'd dig it, though. All the different sounds, the way we're always experimenting, that spirit of exploration, it's very Renaissance.
I like that. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, haven't we? We've explored the world of Renaissance magic, its connection to Christian Kabbalah, met some fascinating figures. We've even touched on the ethical side of chasing forbidden knowledge. It's been a journey.
It really has, and we've only just scratched the surface, honestly. But that's the beauty of it, right? There's always more to discover.
Exactly. But for now, we got to wrap things up. So here's a thought to leave you with. What if the real magic of the Renaissance wasn't about talking to angels or turning lead into gold? What if it was about the power of ideas, the guts to imagine a different world, to question everything, to chase knowledge with, well, everything you've got? That's magical to me.
Beautifully said. The real magic wasn't supernatural. It was human. Our capacity for wonder, for curiosity, for never giving up on trying to understand, that's something worth celebrating, even today.
And on that note, we'll leave you to your own explorations. Until next time, keep those questions coming, keep diving deep, and never lose that sense of wonder.